Great. Thank you again for taking the time to take part in this event. I really
Yes,
appreciate your time.
no, it is my absolute pleasure, Emily, and it's so nice to meet you and to be part of this powerful, amazing summit this year.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I am Emily Votaw with WOUB, a public media station in Athens, Ohio. And I was wondering if you could please introduce yourself and let me know exactly what your title is at the Rock Hall.
Yes, so my name is Nwaka Onwusa, and I'm the Chief Curator and Vice President of Curatorial Affairs, long title, but at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, Ohio.
Thank you so much for that. And
Yes.
I mean, really, I was thinking that a lot of the people that are going to be watching this are really they're budding young music industry professionals, and because of
Mhm.
that, I thought it might be cool to kind of start in the beginning. Could you tell us about how you came to pursue leadership positions in the music industry, such as the one you occupy at the Rock Hall?
Gosh, well, that's an amazing question, Emily. And for me, my passion just truly started in music. Loving music, I think, everyone has to listen to music at least once a day. Music is a part of our lives. It's who we are as human beings. So my passion really started at a young age. I had no idea. Let me start and lay the groundwork now. No idea that I wanted to be a curator, had no idea what a curator was, didn't really know that I could work in a museum. That whole idea seemed like a mystery, to me. Definitely, I went as a kid and all that great stuff, but didn't have a traditional track. So for me, my passion really just started in music. I studied sociology when I was in my undergrad at UC Riverside in California. Um, I was in a singing group. I played violin as a kid. I played piano. I was in choir. I sing. I sing at church. I sang in school. I mean, I was surrounded by music. It was definitely a part of me. So I wanted to make sure that whatever I did, whether it was in education, which is what I wanted to pursue. So I was starting out as a substitute teacher and just going to take the track and hopefully become a professor. And that was what my plan was when I was a senior in college and getting ready to graduate. But I, had a unique opportunity. I know many students are working while you're in school. That was me. I had like 2 or 3 jobs and working on campus. I worked in the Fine Arts Theater at Forever 21. I worked at FedEx, loading trucks, me, Emily, if you can imagine. Um, but just trying to make ends meet and just trying to survive. But being in the arts, and so you'll notice I said I worked at the Fine Arts Theater. And that's really where I just kept pounding my musical love. I worked behind the scenes, so I learned how to be a stage manager for some of the theatrical programming that happened at the university, or I got a chance to assist at the lighting board. There were just these amazing things that I got to see behind the scenes, aside from, you know, the usual performing on stage. So having that interest, it came through a professor, or actually an old boss that I had on campus. And he was like, hey, you just love music, you love entertainment so much. They're opening this place called the Grammy Museum. You should apply. I know you already, you're trying to be a substitute teacher, but I think this would be great. Took a chance. And honestly, as I speak to you, the students here that are watching the summit and participating, know that life clearly, as we're living it now, can take you in any direction. And to just take a chance on yourself and to take a leap. I mean, it's like, hey, what do I have to lose? Sure, let me take this job. I let me see what it's like. And I started my journey in the museum field, believe it or not, working part-time in the box office. So that's how I really got to understand, like, wow, from the bottom up, from the ground up, the functions of a museum. Because, hey, I was down there at the ground level helping to build it. seeing things, how the museum functions with security, and, you have all the different divisions, and just knowing who's who. That was a great learning experience. And that's how I got introduced, like, wow, I can actually work. Oh, I can have a field. I can pursue education in the museum. Okay, there's an education department. There's a this, there's a that. And that really got me excited. So all of that to say, I hope that answered your question.
Oh, it does. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, what would be some tips you might give, or what are some things that you did early on in your career that were like particularly advantageous that you might advise people that are interested in a similar type career path to do?
Gosh, we have to pivot, right? That was in 2008 when I had that opportunity. I was going to shows, while the museums was open. I was just taking advantage of all the programming, and I'm talking the education programming, the event programming. Even if I had to stand on the wall and hand out programs, I did it because I wanted to be around. I wanted to see how things were flowing. And I know we're living in a different time, and I know we're all praying for better days and keeping our heads up, but, just being involved in the scene. And there are certain ways that you can do that. Number one, participating in this summit and learning from industry professionals and getting some insight, but really just to take a chance, not to limit yourself. I would say the thing that helped me the most was not to put myself in a box. I don't know. I'm sure my life would be great if I didn't work at the Grammy Museum and now at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But I think, it's really amazing to just take a chance on yourself. I changed my major while I was in the middle of my undergrad. I know that's like don't do that. But I did, to follow my passion. You only can live your life for yourself. So that's, like, honestly, the biggest advice is just to trust yourself. Trust in taking new opportunities. You're young, we're young. Life is not promised. Hey, do something that you enjoy and give it a shot. And so that would be my biggest advice.
Absolutely. I mean, on a similar note, I wanted to ask you because I'm a woman that's worked in the music industry for the past like 8 years or so, and I know myself and other women within the industry that I've talked to often express there's certain insecurities that are there regardless of what your actual abilities are.
Yeah.
What are some of the things? Well, first of all, what did you do to help overcome those kinds of insecurities so it didn't hinder your success?
Gosh, now I'm going to start sounding like, a yogi or something. But I mean, I do, but literally, having positive thinking and to really believe in, even if you don't have the skill set 100% down pat, reminding yourself that nobody does. We're all out here learning, that's one of the beautiful things I love about being a curator. It's like our job, you as a writer, as a journalist, it's like, hey, we're out here discovering, we're constantly learning. So to remind yourself that life is for the learning as well as is for the living, I think it's important to just hold on to that no one has it perfectly. You're going to fail and you're going to learn from those lessons. Like, they're not failure. What am I going to learn from this experience? What is this going to teach me? To keep your eyes open and to be taking notes, from those experiences. So, that's how I dismiss fear. Like, hey, get the notion of, oh, you're going to fail. No, this is a lesson. What is the lesson that I'm taking from this moment? I may not have performed at the level that I wanted to this time, or maybe I didn't get access to this, but how do I be creative? Don't beat yourself up. And that's how I think, you can get over negative talk and just really get into yourself, get into your craft, and just get into your passion. If it's something that you want to do, then just go for it. Me starting out not as a traditional like museum studies student or graduate, there was a lot of insecurity that I had to overcome of like, hey, I'm coming into this new industry, not rivaling, but working with some amazing curators. I know the spectrum of what a curator is so broad now because the definition of it. But as a curator in a museum space, It was very intimidating. Like, will I lose my creative juices? Like, am I gonna, am I gonna forget this? Or, I need to read this, just beating yourself up, being so hard on yourself. And again, that's where I come back to life is for the living, the learning, be in the moment. No one has it down pat. You're here to learn. And this is my citadel. I mean, for those who watch Game of Thrones, I just feel like a Meister out here, just trying to make it work. So.
Absolutely. Wow, that's such great advice. And so beautifully put, too.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, from the standpoint of being a curator, could you talk about what is so important about preserving the history of popular music?
Oh, my goodness. It's changing so fast. And right before our eyes, there's a new song. Like every single day, there's new content to be consumed. And so as, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and as many music museums, we want to make sure that, we are reflecting the times, that we're shaping that. So curating and preserving the history is, you have to be fast paced. You got to be flexible. We just have to be sure that we're not only reacting, but we're also anticipating, these moments of preservation. So that's, keeping up with, so for our institution, we have a library and archive, which is absolutely phenomenal. But making sure that we have the right tools to make sure that we can preserve these pieces of history that are being thrown at us every single day. But, we do value it. And we also not just preserving it, but presenting it, making sure that we're telling these stories. We have to preserve them in order to present and tell them and exhibit them and all of that. So without preservation, the future of music is lost. That's my opinion. I mean, that's what I think. But, we do it every day, whether it's collecting from an estate or collecting from a singular artist or a group, it's just really critical. I mean, this is our history. This is what is shaping our culture and shaping our narrative as musical beings. So I think it's really an important gig. It's an important role.
Absolutely, it is. I was really curious if you could talk about, like, what have been some of your favorite experiences in curating these exhibitions at the Rock Hall?
Oh my gosh, my favorite, Emily, that is like all of it. Oh my gosh. My favorite moments, I think really it gets back to your original question about like preservation. Being able to go into the vaults and having access to see what we have been collecting, what we have preserved over the 25 plus years of the Rock Hall being in existence, or 30 years, you would say. I think that's probably one of my favorite pieces, because it's like getting to uncover and open and see pieces of history. And it's through the medium of music. And I think that just gets me on an emotional high. Like I'll start bawling if I keep going. But that's one of my favorite things. When I started at the Rock Hall, I remember getting a tour of the vault, and I was like, holy shit. Like, oh my God. Like, this is amazing. Like, this is amazing. Excuse me. But I was like, wow, like I have to work here. This is just so powerful. This is so dynamic. Like, these pieces of history have been preserved in these halls, and I get to be a part of continuing that legacy. It's a huge honor. So that's my favorite. That's my favorite part.
That's fantastic. I mean, and of course, when people think of the Rock Hall, I mean, you think about the history of popular music, and of course, you're going to think about the Rock Hall nominees every year.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, as all years, it's a really impressive roster of nominees. I mean, we've got like Mary J. Blige, Tina Turner, Jay-Z. Wow. So I was curious, what's the process of nominating musicians?
Oh, wow. Well, I'm still getting into the nitty-gritty of how that works, but there is a nominating committee. And that's a select group of industry professionals and, journalists and just music industry professionals across the board that contribute to the selection of who's going to make the ballot. So there are 16 names on this ballot, and I believe we'll get down to 7 official nominees that will be announced soon. So, for those watching, if you haven't done so yet, the voting polls are still open at rockhall.com until April 30th. So you have time. So you got time. Vote for your favorite artist who's, on the ballot. And it's really going to be an exciting experience. So yeah, that's pretty much how it works. There's the committee, and then it continues, and we do a fan vote, which is explained all on our website as well. And then the final announcement is made. And that's also mysterious. That's kind of like a Wizard of Oz moment for me. But
Very cool, very cool. I have to ask too. I mean, are there any nominees in particular that like you are personally kind of hoping to see them make it into the hall, or can you speak to that? That would be a hard thing to speak on if you work for the Rock Hall.
Right, it is hard to speak on, but I guess I have some of my faves. The ladies who are on the ballot. I absolutely love Shaka Khan, absolutely love Tina Turner, and definitely think it's really beautiful. I mean, and Carole King. I mean, come on, Tapestry. Like, let's say no more. So, I mean, those women, I think all deservedly so should be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And it's not that they're not already. So Carole King, the unique thing here is Carole King and Tina Turner are inducted. However, they're as, duos of supporting groups like Tina Turner with Ike and Tina Turner. So this would be her, her actual second induction, but as just Tina Turner. So we just saw that happen with Stevie Nicks, who was inducted with Fleetwood Mac, and then again as a solo artist. So fingers crossed. And Shaka Khan, like, come on. Like, to me, it's like, yes. And LL Cool J, I have to say, like, Mama Said Knock You Out, like, we wouldn't have, like, just the impact of shaping Def Jam and what that label did for pop culture. And let him in. So I'm just going to say, and I'm going to stop so I don't get in trouble. But those are my thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. I was wondering, I mean, so far as new exhibitions for the new year, and of course, right now we are still in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis. I mean, can you talk to any of the upcoming potential maybe virtual exhibitions, or what kind of the Rock Hall might have in the new year?
So right now I'm not allowed to say
understandable.
So gotta keep lips sealed. But right now we're still celebrating an exhibit that I was able to curate during COVID. I call it Curating during COVID, and that was a unique experience. But it was basically an exhibition, a social justice exhibition that looks at Black musicians who have used their platforms for social equity. And we opened that last summer, June 15th, when the museum was officially closed, and we opened it when we reopened. So a very short turnaround, but that's one of the latest exhibits that we have up now. And we're also celebrating the Rock Hall's 25th anniversary. So that exhibit is also mounted as well, along with a very unique and beautiful collection from the late photographer Baron Wolman. And he was the Rolling Stones' very first photographer for the magazine. So, I mean, just some seminal album, or not album covers, but record or magazine covers that he shot that are also on display at the Rock Hall now. So those are some premier exhibits that we have going, along with, let me not forget, Legends of Rock. And Legends of Rock is basically an exhibit that takes up over 3 floors. in the Rock
Wow.
Hall. And it's an opportunity, getting back to the preservation, pulling out some things from the vault, things that have either never been on display before. I mean, think about it. We have over 35,000, probably close to 40,000 rare artifacts. And so at any one given time, only about 1,500, 2,000 are on display. So there's a lot of amazing stories to uncover. So that's what we have on view now, and I'm really excited about all the narratives that these exhibits tell.
Absolutely. I mean, to speak specifically on the It's Been Said All Along, Voices of Rage, Hope, and Empowerment exhibition, and I mean, that is a exhibition that features images from an OU graduate that many people probably do not know of, but they have certainly seen his work, Chuck Stewart. And I was wondering if you would mind speaking on that a bit, and on the contributions to popular music iconography that Chuck Stewart made in the 60s and 70s.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Chuck Stewart his impact is just so significant. As a photographer, and just as an African-American photographer during the times that he was, studying at OU. And I mean, what he overcame is just significant. But he was blessed in the sense that he had a unique access and a beautiful talent. I mean, he shot some over 2,000 different album covers. I mean, from so many different artists, from Cream to Nina Simone's very first album cover to Gil Scott-Heron's very first album cover. I mean, the span of this man's legacy is just, it's so significant. It's just really mind-blowing. The fact that one of the things that I learned, and I discovered his work when I was at the Grammy Museum, and he was the principal photographer for the Recording Academy. So he had access for years with just capturing some of the Grammy's earliest history. And I think it's just so dynamic. I mean, the span of his work, he's just so... he's timeless. His work is really timeless. It's on display now in the exhibit. It's been said all along. I wanted to highlight him. There's a beautiful shot that he took of Nat King Cole that's on display. We have a beautiful shot in some of the series that he took with Gil Scott-Heron for the album that features the song, the anthem that most people know, "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." And Chuck really just, I mean, his eye is just so powerful. And I wanted to make sure that perspective was captured in this exhibit, not just by musicians, but when you're looking at musicians, you're looking at a photo. And when you're looking at a photo, who took that photo? So I wanted to highlight Black photographers in the exhibit, and the fact that Chuck Stewart has this beautiful Ohio connection to, obviously, to the state here, but into the university, but to music. And he was just able to capture the true essence of musicians and artists across the board. I mean, when you look at his photographs, they're so intimate. They speak for themselves, and they're so powerful. And his work in this exhibit only enhance the value of it. So I'm so honored that Chuck Stewart is a part of this powerful celebration of, of just social justice and music for all.
Absolutely. I would love to know more about your general curatorial vision for the Rock Hall too.
Ooh, well, that's a big one. Emily, you coming with the big ones, the hard ones. My curatorial vision, my goals right now, I'm being open. This is such a unique time that we're living in. We've already referenced this pandemic and the flexibility to pivot. So my vision now is, for sure, when I started in this role, it was during the pandemic. And when I dreamed up being named the chief curator at any museum was, something completely different because the world was open. And we will get to it, but definitely to enhance our virtual presence and find unique ways to augment the visitor's experience. And so that's why having, OU students who are interested in the music industry to know that it's not just the music that you touch, it's the technology that's behind it. And that's the wave that's continuing to push us forward. So there's just so many veins and things to work in, but I'm excited about the technology that will, I think, be more embraced into museum spaces, that we're now in this time of distant but close. I'm right in front of you right now, but we're miles apart. So that really has me excited. Of course, telling diverse stories across the board is one that is just ingrained in me, and that will always be. So whether it's telling a story of I don't know, a Mexican rock and roller to, I don't know, hopefully telling the story of a Fela Kuti who's in Nigeria. I mean, making sure that we just keep the diversity of the impact of rock and roll celebrated through our halls. So that's my vision for the future.
Wow, absolutely. That's beautiful. I mean,
Thank you.
This is kind of a silly one, but I really was looking forward to asking you. There's a lot of great musicians who come from Ohio, of course,
yes.
and
yes.
I was curious if who your personal favorites are. My personal favorites are Devo, the Isley Brothers, Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, you got me with all of those. I would definitely say the Isley Brothers for sure, like hands down. Those guys are just so soulful. I have them on one of my morning playlists that I call Smooth Criminal. And it's this amazing song called Work to Do. And I just love singing it. He's singing to a woman like, baby, I got work to do. And I'm just like, yeah, baby, I got work to do. It's one of my anthems. I absolutely love the Isley Brothers. And I also love Kid Cudi, who is from Cleveland. He is just so, talking about like putting your insecurities, your wins, your failures, whatever, and just being authentic and true to yourself. I absolutely love that about him and his music, and it's so relatable, and it's just, I think, just the new wave. I hope, in the next how many ever years he has, that he'll be a ballot name that comes up for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He truly exemplifies that essence. And also Machine Gun Kelly, who is from Cleveland. Absolutely love him. I think he's a badass too. Again, one who is just a disruptor, a sonic disruptor. And again, Kid Cudi is another sonic disruptor. And I'm here for that. Like, let's break down these silos. We don't have to live in a space of restricting ourselves and what music can be. Like, they're the future and visionaries of what music can continue to become. And I love that about them. And that they're from Ohio. So that's cool. Those are my faves.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah. I was wondering if I could get your words on, I feel like as I was growing up in Ohio, and you hear about the Rock Hall and you hear about the nominations, and there seemed to always be this really awful pushback against nominating anyone who basically wasn't a white guy. And that's obviously really changed, which is fantastic. Yes. But could you speak more to the importance of incorporating the diverse and enormous impact of Rock Hall on many more types of people than just like old white guys?
Yeah. Well, my response to folks who have pushback is, you see the nominees or, and the inductees that take space in the hall. But when you get to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I would challenge those people. Number one, have you been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? And have you been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame lately? You don't get to the induction without the museum. And again, that preservation of music. All sorts of music is celebrated. All genres are celebrated in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I would just say, I mean, you know, just to do some deeper exploring into the roots and of what rock and roll music is. You know, it's fine to, you know, be rooting for rock. And like you said, you know, just looking for rock is not one singular style or a look. Like, and if you want to talk rock, okay, we can just define rock. But we're talking about rock and roll, which covers a whole spectrum. So maybe you got the rock, but baby, you got to bring that roll together. And that's where you get the foundations of what I was saying. You have gospel music, which is an influence. You have blues, you have jazz, you have, I mean, so country music. I mean, there's so many things that fuse together what we now call rock and roll. If you want to call rock and roll is Chuck Berry. Chuck Berry brought that swagger along. That was the whole thing. This is how we get Elvis, okay? Through Chuck Berry. That's that role. He was Black. I mean, it's like, so the music is merged. It's not about race. People have to get out of the mindset of, you know, one singular sound for what rock and roll represents. And that is so far from the truth. That is so false. So again, to those who are pushing back, do a little bit, let's do some deeper digging. I'm paraphrasing here, but for the students who are watching and want to learn more, there's an amazing book called The Tanning of America. And it's written by Steve Stout. And I would encourage you to read it. He's been known as a resource, a confidant to the likes of Jay-Z and so many powerful music industry leaders. And he said something to the effect of, you know, people have to dismiss the demographics that we've been placed in, these structural demographics. At the end of the day, our minds are all the same. our landscape is the same. We all share the same values. We all share the same experiences. We love, we get married, we have babies. Like, come on, let's knock that out. So that's my spiel. Rock and roll is bigger. Rock and roll is bigger than one particular genre. It is bigger than a guitar. Rock and roll is not one thing. It's never been, and that's not how it came to be. It's a mix of both. It's not just both. It's a mix of so many things, so many cultures, so many beliefs.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I feel like that's something that it's becoming more and more acknowledged. I feel like for both of us, it sounds like we were and continue to be music fanatics, and it's nice to see things change, I guess, as you get older.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's so important. Things have to change. We're creatures of change. Music evolves. It continues to grow. I mean, if gospel didn't grow, then we wouldn't have the blues. If blues didn't grow, we wouldn't have, then we wouldn't have rock and roll. Like, things have to grow. Then we wouldn't have hip hop. I mean, all these things impact each other. So, to dismiss hip hop and say it's not welcomed, it's like, who are you? That's how rock and roll even came to be. I mean, when it was, when rock and roll came onto the scene to be acknowledged in musical ceremonies, even at the Grammy Awards or, some of these other award shows that celebrate music, rock and roll, it had to, it also had to prove itself, but it was a new emergence. It was the emergence of just a new sign of culture. And that's what hip hop is today. So, I mean, to blend it all, this is just a reflection of the time that we're living in. Again, that's Nina Simone. We have artists. It's up to us to reflect the times. The music is reflecting the time. It's about an evolution, baby. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I also just wanted to say, I mean, are there any things that you would point to the Rock Hall's website for viewers to check out so far as, the exhibitions that are accessible there, or any other resources you might point folks to?
Absolutely. So the Rock Hall's website is absolutely amazing. I implore you to check it out. Go to rockhall.com to learn more about the virtual exhibits that we have. And that's what I love about what's happening now. If you can't get to Cleveland, wherever you are in the world, wherever you are on the map, truly you can check it out online. We have some exhibits that are up for virtual tours. We have our programs, our monthly programs that are also listed there, so you can RSVP and check out that. We also have a unique membership that's up. So virtual membership, there are unique and exclusive Rock Hall opportunities there. If you sign up for our virtual membership, that's also at rockhall.com. And again, to vote for your favorite nominee that's on the ballot now. You have until April 30th to do so. That's a really amazing experience. And as you know, your students, we have Rock Hall EDU. So if you want to learn more and dig into some of our content and exhibits, you can check that out. Like I said, on Rock Hall EDU, create a free profile, dig into some of the curriculum that's there, some unique interviews, and some great museum highlights. So there's a wealth of information that's on that website. Cool. Well, it was really great to speak to you and just to share my story, and so honored that you guys want to listen to it. And if folks want to follow me or just learn more or get in touch, or if you have a question that you feel I didn't touch on, you can find me on Instagram or Facebook. So happy to connect with the students of OU.